Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Return to Donald Trump's travel ban on refugees and citizens from 7 mainly Muslim countries. Earlier, the Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, told ITV that a state visit by President Trump to the UK should not go ahead while the bans remain in force.
I think it would be totally wrong for him to be coming here while that situation is going on. I think he has to be challenged on this because it's a
So just to be clear, until that ban is lifted, you don't think he should come here?
I'm not happy about him coming here until that ban is lifted, quite honestly, because look at what's happening with those countries. How many more is it going to be? And what's going to be the long-term effect of this on the rest of the world?
So, Julie, is this state visit going to become a huge matter of political debate in the UK now?
I think it would have been anyway, but I mean, Jeremy Corbyn's on very safe ground there. It's a 90-day ban. It's a temporary ban. That's what the executive order says. It'll be over by April. He's not due to come until the summer, so it's safe ground.
Well, you may be right, but there are 3 bans. There's the 90-day ban on people coming from the 7 countries. There's the 120-day ban on refugees from anywhere in the world, and there is the indefinite ban on Syrian refugees. So there may still be some bans in place, Steve.
But bear in mind, by the way, I mean, the number of Syrian refugees and refugees from around the world that President Obama took over his 8 years. I mean, there were some years when it wasn't even in up to 50 Syrian refugees that were taken since the civil war has started. This is actually a rather ongoing American policy rather than
there were
12,500
Syrian refugees came in the past year.
Yes, in 1 year. And previous to that, it was around 100. And 2 or 3 years before then, it was under 50.
Well, then there were 3,500 came in the final quarter of last year. So there's a reasonable number.
That was an unusual
Not something
year.
that America couldn't absorb, of course.
No. It's a drama. I mean, Donald Trump is discovering being a politician is different from being a business leader in his first few days. And Jeremy Corbyn has got to try and learn the art of leadership, having been a backbench MP, and has struggled to do it, as we're about to discuss with Article 50. But on this, I think, you've got to dramatise the politics of this, and that's what he has been doing with that statement.
State to visit, most controversial ever, I guess, now?
I would imagine so, and even regardless of any opposition from the opposition to Trump's presence, the physical presence in the streets of, you'd imagine, hundreds of thousands of people during Trump's visit will be an international news story. Yeah. If Trump's demands for the details of the visit are quite as extreme and as picky as some of the Sunday papers have suggested, that could also be the source of controversy.
What do you have in mind?
Well, isn't he anxious that only certain members of the royal family turn up? And
well, he doesn't want a one-on-one with Prince Charles, we are told.
Though, really?
I mean, on that, some people maybe be sympathetic.
he might
Who
be
knows?
It's the one subject where I think he's in line with British opinion.
I think playing golf in front of the Queen may be a higher bar.
Yes, I think we have to be realistic. I mean, given especially the other people from around the world that the Queen has played host to. I mean, the Chinese president, Saudi kings and the like. Goodness me, we've had a lot worse come to visit this country than Donald Trump.
Brexit. How serious are Labour's problems on this?
Very serious, but they often are with Europe. They were split when we joined in the 70s. They were and still won general elections, 2 in 74 and a referendum in 75. They were completely all over the place in terms of the single currency. Blair said one thing one day, the opposite the next day. Brown said one thing, blah, blah, blah. But
Brown usually said the opposite of what Blair said.
Yeah, as a matter
His
of principle.
default position.
But they were utterly incoherent over the single currency in the build-up to the 97 election and won a landslide because they had the political skills to put all the pressure on the major government, even though their position on the single currency was the same as Major's. It's about, with Europe, the art of leadership. You have to be a political conjurer. You have to dissemble authoritatively when you lead a divided party over Europe. And Corbyn, to his personal credit, can't dissemble. But he's not an individual person on this. He's leading a split party in danger of falling apart. And you need the skills of a political conjurer. And clearly, self-evidently, he's not displaying it because we're talking about the chaotic split which will manifest itself in that vote on Article 50.
Labour and the SNP and the Lib Dems too, I would have thought, they're all going to put amendments down to the short Article 50 piece of legislation. Do they have any chance of succeeding?
No substantial world-changing amendments. I don't think Theresa May has much to worry about, actually. And if anything, I think the reason she has pushed the legal appeal is that it helps her to have a big chunk of the media and a big chunk of public opinion worrying that the popular will of last year is in danger of being overturned. And so even if it was a completely hopeless legal appeal, it generated a week's worth of headlines that actually, as an incumbent Prime Minister trying to execute the Leave vote, suits you politically. Yeah. I think it's a much bigger problem for Labour than it is for Theresa May. We've already seen some shadow cabinet issues about this in the previous week. And the divisions, you have to remember, it's not just that a majority of Labour MPs want to stay in the European Union, but a majority of Labour constituencies voted to leave. On top of that, there's the third point of fact, which is that a majority of Labour voters wanted to stay as well. So you've got three lines of division, and I don't think they're reconcilable.
Amendment that might get through if it was called, and it is in the hands of the Deputy Speaker who will be chairing these debates and the amendments. And that would be an amendment that said, regardless of how the Europeans treat our citizens in Europe, all EU citizens here will be afforded full rights to remain. That might get through.
That may well do, and lots of backbench Tory MPs would back that, and many others. The reality is, we all know perfectly well there aren't going to be mass deportations. It wouldn't be legal. It's not going to happen in the event. It is simply a negotiating tactic, and I completely sympathise with those who say that you shouldn't be using people, real-life people, as a negotiating tactic. But the reality is, it's the EU leaders who are doing that, because that's already been offered. We are happy to guarantee if they have to guarantee. And we should actually, the Remainers should be attacking the other EU governments for not offering that in return.
Steve.
But Article 50 is the easy bit for her. I completely agree with the other members of the panel that she's going to get it through, and the court case almost helps her by getting an easy journey through Parliament. Then it gets really difficult. All of this has been a preamble, and once she begins that nightmarish negotiation, there will be opportunities for a smart opposition to make quite a lot of the turmoil to come. Now, whether Labour are capable of that, let's wait and see. The divisions in Labour are nightmarish for them, but by no means unprecedented. As I said, I think arguably it was much more complicated in the early 70s when you had titans on either side. You know, big ex-cabinet ministers when they were in opposition.
Roy Jenkins, Tony Benn.
Yeah, Michael Foot, Crosland, they were all at it. At the fundamental issue of in or out, and Wilson won 2 elections. So you can lead divided parties on Europe, but you've got to be really clever.
But also, how many more Labour MPs are going to resign? How many more by-elections?
We shall find out this coming week, probably. But we've ended our week ahead because we've run out of time.
I've been getting